The auctioneer raised his hammer, just as she stepped forward. 19-year-old Thomas Whitmore stood bound on the rickety platform in Millfield's town square, watching his future auctioned off like a sack of grain. His father's $800 gambling debt to Vincent Cray, the most feared loan shark in 3 counties, was now his to repay. Dust swirled in the morning sun as townsfolk gathered, eyes sharp with curiosity or judgment. Thomas kept his chin high, but shame burned deep. He'd never held a girl's hand, never kissed anyone, and now he was being sold to the highest bidder. Cray stood nearby, gold tooth flashing in a cruel smile. He thrived on ruin. 3 bidders had shown interest. Old Man Peterson, who worked men to the bone in his copper mine. Jake Morrison, whose ranch hands vanished faster than rain in July. And then, unexpectedly, a woman. She wore a dark blue dress, sturdy but refined, auburn hair tucked under a wide-brimmed hat. Her green eyes locked onto Thomas with unsettling focus. Late 20s, maybe. Calloused hands, but posture like she owned the ground beneath her boots. 200, Peterson rasped. 250, Morrison countered, spitting tobacco into the dirt. The woman raised her hand. 300. A ripple went through the crowd. Women didn't bid at debt auctions, especially not against men like these. 350, Peterson snapped. Without flinching, she said, 500. Silence fell. That was more than most earned in a year. Peterson stormed off. Morrison hesitated, then backed down. Thomas stared at her, heart hammering. Who was she? Why pay so much for a boy with no skills and a ruined name? 500, going once, the auctioneer called. Going twice. Their eyes met across the square. Not pity, something sharper. Recognition, maybe? Like she saw him, not just his father's debt. Sold to the lady. The hammer cracked like a gunshot in Thomas's chest. As the crowd scattered, he stayed frozen on the platform, watching her approach. She handed Cray a leather pouch. He counted the coins with smug satisfaction. Pleasure doing business, ma'am. Hope the boy's worth it. She didn't look away from Thomas. I intend to make sure he is. The ropes fell from his wrists. He rubbed the raw skin, dazed. She'd saved him from the mines. But what now? My name is Clara Delmont, she said. You're coming with me. As she turned toward her wagon, Thomas spotted 3 riders at the edge of town, watching. He'd seen them shadowing Cray all week, and now they were watching her. The wagon rolled out of Millfield, dust trailing behind. Thomas sat stiffly beside Clara, stealing glances. She drove with quiet confidence, reins steady in those rough hands. Finally, he broke the silence. Ma'am, what do you expect from me? She didn't look at him. Can you read and write? Yes, my mother taught me. Livestock? A little. Chickens, a milk cow. He trailed off. Before your father gambled it all away, she finished flatly. I know the story, Thomas. Half the county does. His face burned. I don't care about your father's sins, she said, finally meeting his eyes. I care if you're willing to work. I am, he said quickly. Anything you need. A faint smile touched her lips. We'll see. Then the land opened up, and Thomas gasped. Below them stretched a thriving ranch, lush pastures, healthy cattle, a solid 2-story farmhouse with a wide porch, barns in perfect repair. This wasn't just a homestead, it was a legacy. All yours? He asked, stunned. Every acre, she said proudly. Built it with my husband. Ran it alone these past 2 years. Thomas couldn't believe it. A woman her age holding this all together. Most widows would have sold and left. How do you manage? Carefully, she said, jaw tightening. And by hiring men who don't think a woman can't tell a bull from a steer. They pulled up near the house, and Thomas froze. Fresh wagon tracks. Not hers. Leading straight to the porch. Someone's been here, he whispered. Clara went still. Her hand slid under her coat. Thomas caught the outline of a pistol. Stay close, she murmured. And don't be a hero. The front door stood slightly open. Upstairs, a curtain fluttered in a window that should have been shut. Clara drew her gun, low and ready. Walk behind me, she ordered. Watch the tree line. If you see movement, tell me, now. As they neared the house, Thomas's pulse pounded. Sold at auction, bought by a stranger, and now walking into danger all before noon. Yet something in Clara's stride, calm, alert, unshaken, made him feel safer than he had in weeks. On the porch, she stopped short, carved into the railing. Pay up. Thomas's blood turned to ice. Those 3 riders in town, they hadn't been watching the auction. They'd been watching who bought him. Clara kicked the door open, pistol raised. Inside, silence, but wrong silence. The air reeked of sweat, cheap tobacco, and intrusion. The main room had been searched, drawers yanked out, papers strewn, cushions flipped. But nothing smashed, nothing stolen. They weren't here to rob you, Thomas said. Clara lowered her gun slightly. No. They wanted me to know they'd been here. He reached for a fallen document, but she caught his wrist. Her touch startled him. Warm, firm. The first real contact he'd ever had with a woman who wasn't his mother. Don't touch anything yet, she said softly. We need to figure out what they were after. They moved through the house. Kitchen ransacked, but fine china untouched. Office safe wide open, empty. Upstairs, her bedroom tossed, yet jewelry box still on the dresser. They wanted papers, Clara said grimly. Deeds, records, proof of ownership. At the window, she scanned the tree line. Thomas watched her, the afternoon light catching fire in her auburn hair, the quiet strength in her jaw. He'd never been this close to a woman so capable, so alone. Why did you really buy me? He blurted. She turned. For a heartbeat, her mask slipped. He saw it, loneliness, fear, buried deep. Because I needed help, she said. And because you looked like someone worth saving. $500? She gave a bitter half-smile. Most men around here think a woman like me isn't worth half that. Thomas finally understood. The break-in wasn't random. It was a warning. Clara pulled a rifle from a chest, checked the chamber, and handed it to him. Can you use this? My pa taught me to shoot, Thomas said, voice steadier than he felt. Good. They'll be back. And next time, they won't just search. As they cleaned up, Thomas noticed her wince. Subtle, but there. Every time she lifted her left arm. Then he saw it, a dark stain on the back of her dress. Fresh blood. Clara, you're hurt. She froze. It's nothing. It's not nothing. His voice surprised even him, firm, urgent, protective. She hesitated, then sighed. There was a fourth man, waited by my wagon before the auction. Had a knife, wanted the land papers. You fought him off. Barely. Thomas didn't argue. He just walked to the pantry. Where's your medical kit? She stared at him, startled. You can't. I bought you to help me, he said, echoing her own words. So let me. A long silence. Then she nodded toward the kitchen. Kit's in the pantry. Water's hot. Minutes later, Clara sat in her chemise and corset, back turned. The wound was deep. A jagged cut across her shoulder, already swelling. This isn't a scratch, Thomas murmured, cleaning it gently. I couldn't go to the doctor, she said through gritted teeth. Morrison would have told the whole town by sundown, and half this county's waiting for me to collapse. Thomas tied the bandage with careful hands, heart racing, not from fear, but from the weight of trust she'd just placed in him. Outside, the wind stirred the trees. Somewhere beyond the ridge, the riders waited, and now Thomas Whitmore had a reason to fight. The roof, Thomas said. Can we get onto the roof? Clara nodded, leading him upstairs. From her bedroom window, they climbed onto the sloped roof above the kitchen. Below, chaos raged. The barn was an inferno, horses screaming inside. Torches lit the yard. Harrison's men had every escape blocked. They never meant to talk, Clara whispered, voice breaking as flames swallowed her home. Thomas scanned the yard. The well offered cover, but 30 yards of open ground might as well be a mile. Then he saw it, the root cellar, half hidden by a rise in the land. Does that tunnel still work? He asked. Samuel dug it to the creek, 1/4 mile downstream. Her eyes lit with hope, but we'd have to cross open ground. I'll draw their fire, Thomas said, checking his rifle. When I shoot, you run. Don't look back. Clara grabbed his arm. You won't make it. Maybe not. But you will. For a heartbeat, she just stared at him, then to his shock, she kissed him, quick, desperate, smoky. His first kiss. Don't you dare die on me. Thomas Whitmore, she breathed. Before he could respond, a shadow moved near the trees. Harrison's sixth man. Rifle raised at Clara. Thomas didn't think. He leapt off the roof, tackling the gunman just as the shot rang out. They crashed into the dirt, wrestling for the weapon. The man was bigger, but Thomas fought like a man with everything to lose, and everything to gain. He swung the rifle like a club. The man went down. Clara dropped beside him, wincing as her injured shoulder hit the ground. You're insane? She gasped. Work so far? They sprinted for the cellar. Harrison's men were still focused on the burning house, believing their prey trapped inside. Clara yanked open the hatch, and they plunged into darkness just as shouts erupted behind them. The cellar smelled of earth and preserves. At the far end, behind grain sacks, gaped the tunnel entrance. They crawled through the narrow passage in total blackness, Clara ahead, Thomas close behind, hyper-aware of every brush of her skirt. Every shaky breath. Minutes later, they emerged by the creek, hidden in tall grass. Behind them, the ranch burned like a funeral pyre. Clara sank to her knees, tears cutting through the soot on her face. "It's all gone. This is my fault," Thomas said. "No," she said firmly. "This was coming. You just gave me someone to fight for." She stood, resolve hardening. "We go to the territorial marshal in Carson City. I've been collecting proof against Steele for months. Tonight, that's the final piece. It's a 2-day ride through dangerous country. I know. And they'll be hunting us." Thomas stepped closer. "Before we go, there's something I need to say." She turned. Moonlight caught the gold in her green eyes. "When you kissed me, it wasn't just fear. At least not for me." Clara stepped nearer. "What was it then?" Before he could answer, hoofbeats. Harrison's men had picked up their trail. They dove into the creek, hiding beneath a fallen log as torchlight swept the water. "Steele's offering $1,000 for you, dead or alive." Harrison's voice boomed. $500 for the boy. Pressed together in the icy water, Thomas felt Clara's heartbeat against his chest. Then barely a whisper. "What you were going to say." "I love you," he froze. "You don't mean that?" She kissed him again, slow, sure, real. "You're not just some boy, Thomas. You're the man who stayed." Later, soaked but safe, they slipped away in the pre-dawn dark. Clara took his hand. "When I saw you on that auction block," she said, "I didn't just see a debt. I saw someone who knew loss and still had fight left in him." 3 days later, arrest warrants were signed for Marcus Steele, Buck Harrison, and Vincent Cray. 6 months after that, Thomas stood with Clara on the porch of their rebuilt ranch, stronger than before, his arm around her waist, her wedding ring glinting in the sunset. "You ever miss your freedom?" she asked softly. He smiled. "Freedom isn't being alone. It's choosing who you belong to." And in her eyes, he saw their future. Years of partnership, hard work, maybe even children. Sometimes, the worst moment leads to the best life. Sometimes, being sold is really being saved. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to our channel because we've got more incredible tales of love, courage, and redemption from the Old West. Now, click on the video on your screen to hear a story even better than this one, with a twist so powerful you won't forget it anytime soon.